Ah, boy, here we go again. Right? Hello there, guys. Welcome back to Younes Talks Football. I hope all of you are doing well today as we dive into shocking circumstances. Shocking circumstances. And funny that, over the last 24 hours, we thought something else was the most shocking circumstance, and that was John Cena tapping out for the first time in 20 years. We love you, John. Best of luck in retirement. A very emotional night. But since that point, we've had a clue that at Chelsea after the game yesterday, something wasn't quite right. And why? Because after the game, where Chelsea beat Everton 2-0, Enzo Maresca done his press conference and he came out with something that was a little like, yo, again, let's bring out another reference. You know, you're hitting bombs, but you think we can't see you. Yo, what's going on? Enzo, who are you aiming this at? You're probably wondering, if you've been living in a cave, what are you talking about? Well, let me show you. Here's what Enzo Maresca said after the game yesterday in the press conference, and it started getting everyone to ask questions because, well, who is he talking to? Check it out. Enzo Maresca, on the last 48 hours comment, he said that it's been the worst 48 hours since I joined the club because people didn't support me or the team in general. But he did say, I love the fans and we are very happy with the fans. That was off the back of someone saying, are you talking about the fans here? And he said, we love the fans. The fans, we are very happy with the fans, right? So when he come out and said that over the last 48 hours, it's been the worst time since he joined the club. And then when he was told to explain that, because people didn't support me or the team. Who are these people? Because I'll be honest, when I heard these comments at first, when I was watching the press conference, I was like, he's talking about the fans, surely, because we all gave criticism, let's be honest. We all gave criticism. I think justified criticism, 100%. Because what he did at Atalanta was mad. Let's just call it buck a buck. But he wasn't talking about the fans. So who is he talking about? Well, since that point, we've been wondering. And today, we've had people come out with information. So, you'll be glad to know it's not the fans. But it's a clash that we've seen too many times to not know what probably happens next. This is why I started off saying chaos has arrived, ladies and gentlemen, once again. So let's get into it. Here's Ben Jacobs. Enzo Maresca has an internal issue at Chelsea, expected to clarify his comments before Cardiff. Chelsea insiders insist Maresca wasn't singling out any individual. Frustration brewing for a while. Rotation debated. Wearing non-Chelsea clothing unrelated. That, can I just say, that last bit is hilarious. Like, yeah, we just have to clarify it about, by the way. Oh, because he's not got his tracksuit on. Don't worry, that's not a sign that he wants to leave the club. You know, like, come on. What's going on? Anyway, let's get into the detail. That was just the sort of sub-headlines of what Ben Jacobs did speak about in his big post. So let's see what he had to say. Here it is in detail. The Chelsea boss is believed to understand the logic of Chelsea's rotation policy and also want to ease the burden on certain players. But when the chopping and changing backfires, including the loss to Leeds, he feels he's being scapegoated, often via the media, despite rotation being a core part of Chelsea's strategy, something that's encouraged, not simply done out of necessity. Maresca has also had to deal with the long-term absence of Levi Colwill due to an ACL injury and said publicly he wanted another defender over the summer, but Chelsea's recruitment team decided against it. And Cole Palmer has been absent with a groin injury in recent weeks, whilst Caicedo missed the Everton game. Maresca feels like when form dips, those mitigating circumstances aren't always appreciated. This is why I said here we go again. Yeah, we know where this is all going to go, isn't it? Yeah, we just know. Well, look, there's some more detail. It's best to clarify everything, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. So here's more from Ben Jacobs. Chelsea's owners remain calm after Maresca's surprise outburst, expecting him to stress that there is no specific issue with an owner or sporting director, and believe he has adapted well since joining from Leicester City in summer 24. The Italian will be reviewed this summer as part of a pre-planned and two-way assessment. More from Ben Jacobs says, Maresca's comments and internal issues will prompt further conversations as all parties try and get on the same page. Great. So we've got a divide. Right? Well, I think personally, that there's blame that can be accounted to everybody here. Everybody. I sympathize with Enzo Maresca, especially with that last bit. If he genuinely wanted a defender in the summer and we didn't give him one, I'm actually glad that we found the partnership of, I was going to say Tosin. It was, I don't know why. I stopped myself. I'm like, hang on. I had an access denied in my head. I was like, what? That doesn't make sense. Fofana and Chalobah, I'm glad that he's actually managed to find a centre-back pairing that is working. And without question, that centre-back pairing is working in the absence of Levi Colwill. But in the build-up to that, we were struggling, man. We were struggling. He was struggling. Big time. Anything he tried in defence wasn't working, right? That's fact. So if, especially with the injury to Levi Colwill, he legitimately wanted, a centre-back and we didn't give him one, that's something I think the entire fan base can look and go, in terms of the directors and the club, why didn't we get him a defender? It's from our point of view as fans on the outside, we can always speculate and we can always go, well, does he want one? Does he not want one? We're not at Cobham. We don't know. Unless if you are and you know what's going on internally, different story. For us that don't, we can only make assumptions. Or we can juggle both scenarios and go, what if he does? What if he doesn't? This is the case if he does, and this is the case if he doesn't. Well, it's now become more apparent that the rumours that we were hearing back then, that yes, he apparently wanted a defender, well, it seems like they are completely true. He did want a defender, right? And there were little clues in press conferences, if you remember, of him making those subtle comments. It wasn't a direct thing, but subtle comments about, wanting players in the market. Well, that I can sympathise with him. But I am not going to ignore, because it's unfair. I'm not going to ignore the mistakes that Enzo Maresca is making with the options that he has available, right? Or has done as of late, especially that Atalanta game. There's been mistakes that he has himself admitted to in the press conferences, right? Especially after that Leeds game. He came out and said himself of what he did in that defence that he regrets and shouldn't have done. His own mouth. And I agree. Which is why when after he said that, I was like, fair play, okay, you owned up to it, cool, let's not do that again then. Those mistakes do cost. And the over-tinkering, as we've come to know and love as of late, or as we've come to know and hate as of late, that rhymes. Actually, word life. This is where I want to see Maresca put himself in a situation where everyone can go, look, he's done everything he can possibly do. Which I feel like right now, he hasn't done completely. Let me paint the picture. Recruitment is easy to go after. And I think the overlying problem is there, without question. But right now, right? We're in December. We're close to January, don't get me wrong. But up until this point, there is nothing that we can do except use the players that we have. And the players that we have are not crap, right? Now, we've had players out, which hasn't helped. But we've had enough on the pitch to go and get results against the likes of Leeds or Bournemouth or Atalanta. In the same way that we managed to get the same team to go and get results against Barcelona and Liverpool and Spurs. This is where I look at Maresca, because we've all made the analysis. All of us have come to the conclusion on some of the selections and some of the shapes that Maresca has deployed. And we've gone, brother, what are you doing? Some of the changes that he's made, we're going, you're losing your mind. What are you doing? The Everton game was a good example of him keeping it a little bit more simple, which is all that we're asking for. And that is going to allow everyone to go, look, okay, if Maresca, for example, is deploying a team that makes sense, a selection that makes sense, and then he wants to bring players on, take players off, but those subs and those changes, game in, game out, even if there's rotation, they make sense. Then what can you come at Maresca for? We're not at that point yet. That's my point. My point is that we need to get the maximum out of Maresca first, and he needs to allow himself to get the maximum that he can get out of the squad without doing any stupidness. Once we've got to that point and we can see what we're getting in results, then we can go, okay, look, we're missing this, and this, because we know it, and he's done every single thing that he can possibly do. There's nothing more that he can do. We can't look at the manager any longer, or the head coach in this regard. We now look to other places in terms of right now, because there's no other thing that we can do. That's not to say that in the market, we couldn't have done better. 100% we could have. If I had my way right now, I'd be playing Osimhen up front as our number 9. That's how I would have done it, right? If I had my way, probably Rodrigo would be part of the squad, you know? If I had my way, we could just walk in and just take Bastoni from Inter Milan. But that's not realistic. And this is where we have to look at, okay, Maresca, as long as you're keeping things fairly simple and you're doing what you can, and there's nothing that anyone can blame you for, well, at that point, don't worry. We're not going to look at you. We're going to look further than you, which is the right thing to do in that situation. But we're not there yet. Now, when it comes to Jan, when it comes to the summer, and bearing in mind we've got FFP and we've got all of these restrictions, we've got the UEFA settlement, we've got all of these, which means that we have to sell players in order to buy players in, right? But this is where, okay, if Maresca wants a certain thing done, we now look to players that are going to help him achieve his goals, that are going to help him get what he can get out of this Chelsea squad, maximum. Which many people will say, we've not quite done, and the quality isn't there. Yeah, I agree. It's not there fully to go, for example, and say, yeah, you know what, from the beginning, not even that we're going to be in a title race, we're going to go and win the league. Because that's what we all aspire to. That is where we should be, right? We should be at a point where we go, yeah, we're going to win the league. Or we're at least going to take it to the very end and we'll see what happens. But we're there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That's where we should aspire to be. And we're not. Let's be honest, we're not. Do we have the quality to take it as far as we can? I believe we do. But this is where I look to Maresca to use what he can use right now and do what he's got to do. Which I feel like he has made mistakes. So that needs to be resolved first. But let me say one thing. Because we know what this sounds like. And to be fair, actually, let me show you. Matt Law said something very important here. Let me explain. He said, if Enzo Maresca's complaint was at the owners, sporting directors, then I'm afraid he's fighting a losing battle. That's true. That is true. He is absolutely fighting a loser, but he won't win that battle. No way. But here's the thing, and this is what I will say. And it's something that I said prior to Enzo Maresca getting hired in the first place. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. I hope I'm not. Because if not, I'm going to get into a sneezing thing. I don't want that. Okay, we're good. I think we're good. Okay. It's something I said prior to Enzo Maresca being hired. If this doesn't work out and this goes wrong, when it's not at the fault of Enzo Maresca completely and there's other mitigating circumstances, Winstanley and Stewart need to go with him. Minimum. Because we would have gone through enough. Sacking Tuchel. Potter. Yeah? Lampard on an interim, which just didn't go well anyway. That was a big PR exercise. Pochettino. And now Maresca. And if that goes wrong, and we don't actually take the team any further forward than what we were prior to him getting hired in the first place. Yes, we won a Club World Cup and whatnot. We got back to Champions League football. But that shouldn't be the Champions League football. The Club World Cup was a great achievement. Don't get me wrong. Winning the Conference League that was a written. Yeah, if we didn't, there would have been a problem. The Champions League football, great. We got ourselves back into that and we got it in the top 4, not the top 5. Fantastic. Well, the next step up there should be going for the title, being in the title race. And if we're not at that point, for whatever reason, and Maresca has done everything that he can possibly do where everyone can acknowledge and go, look, there's nothing to blame him for, right? And then he gets sacked or something happens to him or he's unhappy or he's not given what he needs and then he leaves, then I'm sorry, the directors have to follow him out the door. Which some people will say, yeah, but that's not going to happen. Well, I'm just saying, like, that is what should happen. Because if not, we're going to go through the same thing again. We're going to go through another manager that is just not going to take us to where we need to get to because the same people that have made the past 3/4, technically, choices are the ones that are going to go make the 5th. And that's just not, people are looking at this and going, yeah, you know what? Oliver Glasner would be a very good appointment. I agree. As out of all the new gen managers that are coming through right now and everyone that is set in the bar, Oliver Glasner and the way that he carries himself at Palace is the only one that I can look at and go, there is proper structure there. Proper. But even then, I'll give an example. Look at Xabi Alonso. That's not worked out for Real Madrid, is it? Everyone has their own little story. You never know what's going to happen. But if something were to happen to Enzo Maresca in this regard, which to be honest, if I'm going to make a prediction, I think this whole thing is going to cool down. I think it's all going to cool down. But, end of the season, there is the end of season review. That is 100%. You never know. If Chelsea have not made Champions League football, he gets the chop. But again, that shouldn't just be a case of, okay, gets the chop, get the next man in. There's been too many appointments that have not gone right. That's just the truth. And for the people that are going to be coming on at that point and saying, oh, but okay, you know what? The directors, they're not going to go anywhere. Well, they're the only ones that can legitimately be changed today. If someone in power wanted to, gone. Let's make a replacement. That is what can be facilitated. An entire sale of a football club cannot be facilitated. So it's unrealistic. As much as there's people that will be like, yeah, you know what? Let's change the ownership. I've been down that road. It's unrealistic. I own this bottle. And you tell me you don't want me to own that bottle anymore. All right, make me sell it then. It's not happening. I will say one thing. If enough people want to pile pressure on, right? Enough people want to pile pressure on, then perhaps thoughts start to go. But we've been down that road and we've already seen there's not enough people interested. We live in a democracy, right? So let's move on with it. But People that are hired, different story. Winstanley Stewart, despite signing a contract extension, have been hired. And their jobs can be put under review. And a change can be made if it's been inadequate in terms of the work that they've done. That can happen in the blink of an eye. But my point is, if something were to happen to Maresca, it's like I said when he was hired, if something happens to him, they've got to go to. End of story. And then who do we bring? And then all of that again, you know? But these comments right now doesn't surprise me. It always goes back to that point that I've mentioned and I will continue to mention. When things don't look right, more times than not, there's no smoke without fire. Now, against Barcelona, those sort of games where we grind it out, we put ourselves in, we play a certain way and everyone's up for it, brilliant. Tactically and mentally, we're in the game, for that game, in isolation. But in other circumstances, the normal day in, day out routines, well, Maresca has, according to himself, been having a very tough time and has not been getting the support that he feels like he needs from within. And to be fair, I think that mainly comes from the direction of the directors. So what's going to happen now? We'll wait and see. But it's concerning because we've seen this script more than most. We know how this ends. Unless if Maresca literally, calms everything down and goes, okay, you know what? Water under a bridge. Let's just keep moving. No problem at all. Then we move on. But he's still going to have his job analysed in the summer. At the end of the season, he will be put under review. And I do suspect that if we do not make Champions League, he will be replaced. With who? God knows. But, like I've said, I've already seen many people who don't want Maresca here advocate for Glasner, which I feel like, wouldn't be bad. But there's no one really else that we can turn to and just expect a miracle from at this point, is there? And it also goes back to that point. If this is the case and what Maresca is saying is justified and we haven't brought in the players that he's wishing to bring in, well, the next guy has to be backed properly. But right now, under these directors, it doesn't seem like that would be the case completely. It would be the case in terms of halfway there, but not fully. And right now, we're not in a great financial situation either because of the settlement and because of restrictions. So are we expecting too much is another thing here. Because at the end of the day, I'm not interested in coming on and ranting and raving, unlike before. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't produce anything. It doesn't bring anything to the table. What I would rather do is look at the situation for what it is. Try and offer some good suggestion. Try and offer some productive analysis. Try and look at the situation for what it is. And what can we actually do with the tools that we have at our disposal? What needs to be done? Who is doing what they're doing wrong and who is doing what they're doing right? And have a civilized conversation in terms of how can we get better? And just bring our opinions to the table. Honestly. But bring our opinions to the table. But there's nothing else that we can do. The best way to be productive would be to try and offer solution. Not to keep dwelling on problems. It's as simple as that. So right now, what I say as a solution that needs to be done, Maresca needs to simplify. Maresca needs to take charge of the situation as of right now. And not make any silly mistakes like we've seen as of late. Yesterday against Everton was much better. Much better. Brilliant. Keep on that rhythm. Play players in their positions. Don't interfere and tinker too much. Don't change too much. Don't make it into a scenario where there's players that legitimately do not know what they're doing. Because that is what we've been seeing. And it's not helping them at all. That is a solution that we can implement immediately. That is productive. When we get to January, we can then start talking about the team, players, levels, window, some transfers, players in, players out. We can have that conversation at that point. But as of right now, what's the point? It's a waste of oxygen. So we need to bring some rationality to the situation here. Yeah. It's easy to scream and go crazy and let the tongue do the moving, but in terms of actually trying to bring something productive to the table, I would rather people try and implement and try and contribute to that instead, because that is the only thing that is going to actually bring ideas that might take us forward. Simple as that. So Maresca needs to take that action right now. Directors will analyze in Jan. Simple as that. And then we'll see where the situation is. And then at the end of the season, he will be reviewed. But it's as simple as that. Let me know your thoughts down below. Much appreciated, people. Subscribe, notification bell on. Be here for tomorrow. Shootout. There will be the Premier League roundup, unless we're going to wait until Man United play, because they play on Mondays now every single week. So I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, be there. Content's dropping. We're going to do quite a batch, and we're going to make sure you guys are covered pretty much day in, day out. So make sure you're subbed over there, link in the description. Make sure you're here. I will see you here tomorrow as well. So look after yourselves. Have a good one, people. See you guys tomorrow. Take care. And peace.